I want to give you some practical approaches to understanding the science of happiness. Some key components that are going to help you really understand better what are some of the principles that you should start tapping into in order for you to make a ripple effect in everything else that you're focusing on. What's going on, guys? Thank you so much for tuning in to yet another episode here of Walking Manifestator. I'm your host, 𝐓𝐢𝐦𝐞𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐦𝐩𝐬, and in today's conversation, I want to give you some practical approaches to understanding the science of happiness. That's right. So if that's something that catches your attention, go ahead and get comfortable because we're going to go over some key components that are going to help you really understand better what are some of the principles that you should start tapping into in order for you to make a ripple effect in everything else that you're focusing on. Now, this is stuff that has actually had scientific research conducted to back up some of these principles. So I want to give you a list of things that you might want to start paying closer attention to in order to really see where you might be lacking, where you might have some blind spots. And one of the things that I'm I have a very aware understanding about is that if you don't see your blind spots, how can you improve? That's the reality, right? Like maybe for yourself, it might be the way you come across. Maybe for yourself, it might be the relationships you continue to put yourself in. Maybe it's the way that you perceive yourself, you name it. But if you don't actually see it, there's no way for you to actually improve that because in your mind, it doesn't exist, right? And this is where one of the key components that is on this list is very important to really notice that for me personally was and continues to be something that I'm actively working on. So the first one that we're going to get into, and these are set in certain structures. So if you're actually watching this, I will go ahead and link down below a link for our community because we're going to actually have a worksheet for you to actually work through this. So if this is something you're interested, go ahead and click down below, download it, and come back to the podcast. But I really want to make sure that this is something that you really take the time later today or even through the podcast to really analyze these points because Kwik, and he's a brain coach, he's an amazing reader. I mean, this guy's just a badass. And he really talks about it's one thing to actually read and it's one thing to actually like study the material, but it's another thing to actually embody it. He says it differently, but that's basically what he means because he's actually saying, well, you can read all the books in the world, but if you actually don't go and implement the things that you're learning from these books, why are you even reading these books, right? So I really want you to challenge yourself and take that time to really go deep and understand the premises behind these pillars. Now, the first one is going to be labeled under spirituality. Spirituality is going to have two categories. The first one is going to be your purpose, and the second one is going to be your awareness. And this could be your mindfulness, however you want to call it. So I want to give you an example of what this might mean. Now, when you're talking about your purpose, you've probably heard of your why, right? What is your why? And there's a quote that really resonated with me. I read it a few years ago and it basically said, a lot of us as parents, if you're a parent or maybe you have somebody that you look after or even for yourself, but we often say like, I would kill for my kids, right? Or I would die for my kids. And there was this quote that said, but would you live for your kids? And would you get better for your kids? Would you improve for your kids? And this could be also applicable for yourself if you're, with no kids. Would you get better for yourself? Would you actually live for yourself? Would you improve for yourself? And this is why it's so important to really understand the purpose, right? The why. Why are you doing whatever it is you're doing? If you actually look at the stats and you really dive deep, you're going to understand that most people, they actually think that by achieving happiness, it's going to actually I'm sorry, let me go back. By achieving success, it's going to actually allow you to have happiness. But if you really think about it, if that was the case, then the most wealthy people from the planet would actually be very, very happy. And we've seen a lot of cases that actually have shown that these people, sometimes they overdose, sometimes they, commit suicide, whatever the case might be. But if that was really the case, then that wouldn't be happening, right? If we could argue the fact that actually success is going to bring you happiness, then you would know, well, yeah, for sure, there's nobody actually, doing these things. But in reality, that is not the case. And this is why it's so important to really approach life from a spiritual perspective, along with the other modules and pillars that we're going to go over. But spirituality really allows you to tap into that purpose of understanding your why in order for you to push through when things go south. Now, going into mindfulness, awareness is really understanding how to enjoy the now. And we're only together for, 20 minutes, so I'm going to try and make this as quick as possible. These are very deep conversations, very long conversations, but think about it, right? We've talked about it. A lot of people think that they're their thoughts, but in reality, we're the awareness above our thoughts. And when you can really start to understand that, then you understand that you are the observer. You are not the thing that's actually being observed. You are the thing that is actually observing. So this is something very important because it allows you to start separating yourself from these thoughts that are holding you in that limiting and in that state of vibration that is not beneficial for you. Now, the next category is physical. And again, remember, this is the science of actually being happy. And this is something that is going to really allow you to hit all pillars in order for you to really start tapping into that quest for yourself, to really feel that you are fulfilled, to really feel like you're on the right path. And turbulence is bound to happen, okay? But if you can start understanding how these steps really play at each one of the categories in your life, I think you can agree that all of these pillars we're about to talk about truly do affect everything else. Now, physical, okay? Physical can be exercises, right? So things that you're actively doing to get in shape, to, maybe stop with the, lazy couch Sundays all the time and actually say, you know what, hey, let's go and do something outdoors with the family. Or, hey, you know what, instead of just watching Netflix when I get back from work, I'm actually going to push myself to say, you know what, I'm going to go to the gym because I know that this is going to actually help me. I've read the studies, I've heard the people that actually do it say that they feel better and they look better. So why not push myself? And we go back to the why. If you have a big enough why, that's what's going to help you actually push yourself to get up when you feel like giving up, okay? And on that same path, we need to understand also the path to recovery. And I said this in one of my podcasts. At one point, I was pushing myself to such a degree in which I could not walk at one point. Like, my back got so bad. I was going to the gym literally at 12 a.m. I was getting out of the gym by like 2 a.m. I was coming back, getting to bed, waking up at 6 to get the boys to school. It was really, really consuming me, and I didn't really pay attention to my body until my body showed me, like, you're gonna listen, and I paid the consequences. So this is where recovery and really taking that time to take care of yourself, to pamper yourself, to have that moment of appreciation for yourself is important as well. There is a balance that you need to be able to tap into. Just like there is, work hard, there also has to be that play hard, meaning taking time for yourself. Now, the next step is really the intellectual. And I like to see this as the growth aspect. What are you doing to actively grow? And there's two categories on this, which could be obviously the failures. Sometimes when we're growing, it might feel a little daunting. It might feel like imposter syndrome. It can feel like you are a fish out of water because you're in a place, wherever that might be, whether it's physical or just, mindful, that you feel like you're not actively knowing everything that you should know, because that's how our psyche works. We start criticizing and analyzing everything. But we need to give ourselves the grace to understand, just because I don't know it doesn't mean that I can't actually learn it. And something that I've learned to really catch myself whenever I say, oh, I don't know that, I just actually start rewiring my brain to say, I don't know that yet, or oh, I haven't done that yet. Instead of just saying, no, I don't know how to do it, I'm reframing the wording to actually say, oh, I haven't tried that yet, right? And now you give yourself the opportunity to not just really psych yourself out, and now you're like actually analyzing, hey, it's just something I haven't really tried before. And there's no big deal in that. Just like at one point I didn't know how to walk, I can take this quest on as well. And journaling really is gonna help you with that step, because one of the things that you can actually, and even if you think about it right now, right? Maybe sometimes you're going through like a problem in life. And as you're going through that problem in life, it's very easy for you to get overwhelmed and to think like the worst, right? In your mind. But the moment that you give yourself just some time and say that problem out loud, I don't know if it's happened to you, it's happened to me, where you say it to a friend, you say it to a family member, whoever you might say, you say it to yourself in the mirror. And as you're saying it out loud, you're like, that sounds very silly. Like, I can't believe I'm this stressed out about this one thing, because in reality, it's not that big of a deal. And journaling really helps you in catching yourself on these things to really understand that there is a way out. There is a solution. Now, the next pillar of that is relational. This is going to be geared around relationships and contribution. And we talked on the last podcast about some pillars that I like to use, you know, when it comes to like your experiences that you want to live in life, your contribution, your growth, and what you want to create in life. This is geared around this relationship piece, because one of the things that we really don't understand is that you cannot, okay, have a harmonious life. You cannot be fully fulfilled if the people you have around you, if the relationships you have around you are not in alignment with what you are hoping to create. So how can you be in this like abundant state of being, in this, you know, mindset where you're looking to just continue to, you know, grow and evolve, but then you have your partner that doesn't want to grow in life. You have your parents that are constantly, you know, complaining about how horrible their life is. And I know that a lot of people sometimes say like, hey, well, family is family. I'm sorry, but for me personally, I also have learned to draw my boundaries. And I wish, you know, those family members that I have that maybe we don't align at this time, because I feel that there's, you know, different perspectives. I've learned to not judge them for what they're doing, and it's a work in progress. But I've also learned to have these boundaries set to where I'm not going to allow you to deplete my energy. And this is something that a lot of people have problems with, to be honest, because it can be overwhelming and they feel like, well, you know, I can't just turn my back on my family. And I hear you. And again, I think that this is something that we all have different perspectives on, but I'm sharing with you what's worked for me. And for me, it's like, I'll be there, but the moment that you start talking badly about somebody, I'm gonna tell you, let's talk about something else, because I do not want to engage in this conversation. I do not want to add more fuel to the fire. I'm not interested in giving my energy away for something that is not worth it. And on that same note, the contribution is very important, okay? When we're talking about relationships, what you're doing in something as small as donating some cans at your local food drive, to the homeless man in the street, to, you know, getting together for actually a larger project, these things make a difference. And I think a lot of us, sometimes we get so consumed by this, like, well, if I had more money, I would help more. Well, actually, what if the frequency that, again, we've talked about energy, right? If you're already an abundant person, that you want to act as an abundant person. And an abundant person doesn't necessarily have to mean just monetarily, okay? It can be also with your time. So an abundant person is going to make time for those things that really make a difference. Like, I'm part of one of the committees here where it's called Community Investment Committee, and we give back to the community by either contributions, by going, and last year we actually helped paint some houses with one of the women council's groups, and we went to help these individuals that their houses were in rough conditions. We've also done food banks, we've also done contributions where we go and actually put an event together for this like Big Brother Big Sister Association. There's a ton of events that we've done, and honestly, the sense of just appreciation that you get for life when you give back, even with your time, it is so rewarding. And this is why they say, and Tony Robbins talks about this, one of the biggest pillars that we have as humans is to feel that contribution aspect. If we just take all the time, I am telling you, you're gonna feel very unfulfilled. And this is the reason why so many people, sometimes they make it at a certain point in life and they still feel like, I didn't really make anything. Nothing really happened. And the last piece of this is the emotional aspect. Now, the emotional aspect goes into two categories, which is going to be really geared around the acceptance pillar and the actual gratitude pillar. And for me, I've really learned to go from the mindset of I forgive you to a I understand you. And Neil Donald Walsh talks about this in his book, and there's other amazing authors that have talked about it through history. When you go from a concept of I forgive you, but you're like, I forgive, but I don't forget. That was something I was very fond of saying. Well, I forgive you, but I don't forget what you did to me. So, you kind of throw them a jab here and there. But actually going from a state of I understand you, it's so powerful because it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to forgive this person. It could actually mean, I understand why you did it. Like, I don't forgive you because, I would never do this, as an example, right? It's just for you to kind of use this as some examples. But if you think about it, if I say, I really hate your hair the length it is, you can sit here and say, well, I don't forgive you because that was pretty, ugly for you to say, but I understand that you don't like long hair. And we talked about this in a last video in terms of, how some of the projections were like mirrors, right? So maybe it's because I'm just jealous of the fact that I can't grow my hair that long, or because she looks really good with her hair short, right? So this is where the forgiveness gets replaced for the understanding, and that is a powerful tool to have. I'm telling you, that tool right there has changed my perspective in so many ways. And it's something that a lot of people that have been in this growth journey have really been able to understand and go from that forgiveness to that understanding that has helped them set themselves free. And the acceptance part is really understanding that we have to embrace the good and the bad. That's the bottom line. Like, we cannot appreciate what bad is if we do not know what good is. We do not know how to appreciate what good is without bad. And this is something that once you can start really asking yourself these questions, practicing these moments in your day, and really just taking a moment, like literally a tip that I can give you right now, whenever you're feeling very overwhelmed, something that helps me tremendously. I used to do this like box technique with my breathing, which was like, you count up to 4 and then you hold it for 4 and then you gradually again release for 4, and you're basically picturing like a box. Okay, if you're watching me, I'm doing my little box emoji here. But what I now do, and it really helps me, is I literally breathe in as far as I can. I literally hold it in and I just hold my breath. And I kid you not, if the boys are pissing me off, or if a client said something, or if I'm just having a rough day, and I felt that emotion of like, I wanted to just like tap out in that moment, I literally take that deep breath in and I hold it for a good, like, I've worked my way up to a minute, but sometimes it's not necessary to hold it for the whole minute. I kid you not, it helps you so much. And the way that I kind of make sense of it is because I feel that my nervous system is now more consumed with the fact that we need oxygen, that it's like, all right, we're not so consumed by this thing that just happened. Like, let me focus on this. And this is where practicing meditation really helps, because you start really learning how significant your breathing is. Sometimes when we're fighting, we forget to breathe. Like, you can have this heated argument and you don't even remember to breathe. And then at the end of it, you feel horrible. And realistically, if you think about it, you're just so consumed by fighting that you weren't even thinking about actually taking a deep breath and trying to relax. This is why a lot of people say count to 100, and you know, when you're trying to fall asleep, count to 100 and count sheep and all this stuff. It's really practicing meditation. So I hope that what we talked about today is something that you can use to help you in your journey. I've told you guys before that anybody that tells you that they're special and that you need them for you to be better is completely lying. Yes, I do think that there's mentors out there that I have personally, whether it was buying their book or invested in their coaching, that have really changed my life because it helped me understand a deeper layer. But at the end of the day, you need to understand that you are really the one that holds the power, okay? You're the one that has this innate ability to create what you choose to focus on. So with that being said, if there's any feedback that you guys have, something that I have in the works is that I want to start getting speakers as well, some other co-hosts to actually go ahead and be on our podcast so that we can interview them. So if there's anybody in particular that you guys would like for us to eventually have, I would greatly appreciate any feedback. Also, if you guys are getting any value from this podcast, if you guys would do me a huge favor and like or comment down below or share it with somebody that you think could actually benefit from this material. This is the way that we get the message around, okay? Just like there's, all these news stations that are always spreading the word of bad stuff, let's do the opposite and let's actually spread the word of positive things. With that being said, remember to embody the walking manifestator you are. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will talk to you guys on the next one.